ELATIA Partners have been continuously operationalizing the IPSSDD framework and are making significant impacts in their respective communities for several years now. In the context of IPSSDD, ELATIA adapted the community-based monitoring and information systems as a tool in generating baseline data, territorial mapping, and inventories of natural resources and relevant reports about Indigenous peoples and their communities. Over the years, ELATIA Partners documented significant stories obtained from their CBMIS work within the context of IPSSDD. In the southern part of the Philippines, Silingang, dapit sa Sitlakang Mindanao, Southeastern Mindanao, or SILDAP SE, three-dimensional mapping of three Mansaka communities was undertaken, playing an important role during the resource inventory in Mount Canduyog in the province of Davao de Oro in the Philippines. The 3D map is also used in the annual development planning activities of Barangay Manipongol. In the northern part of the Philippines, Indigenous peoples in Ginaang Kalinga and Tinok Ifugao constructed their 3D maps for community territorial information and monitoring systems in Indigenous communities. These initiatives were made possible through the Indigenous Farmers Association of Ginaang Pasil Incorporated or IFAGPI in Kalinga and Naundap ni Napanuhan ni Kalanguya or NNK in Ifugao, in partnership with Tebtebba and the local government units. 3D mapping helps to generate data that systemize information, helping Indigenous peoples to efficiently manage and protect their territories and natural resources. ELATIA Partners in Kenya, Cameroon, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Peru were able to identify their natural resources and their cultural heritage through participatory mapping of their ancestral territories as part of their territorial management.
With the mapping, we were able to see on the spot how many hectares of forest we have, primary forest and secondary forest. It helped us to recognize by sectors how many hectares of woodland we have to protect. And from there, the idea of conserving and protecting our forests and recovering them was born. Men, women, and children, we all participated. The elderly folk helped us identify the medicinal plants, so we all learned something.
As part of IPSSDD, research and documentation enabled Indigenous peoples to collect their own information with appropriate data gathering methods and tools. In Brazil, the Indigenous Council of Roraima, or CIR, conducted a socio-environmental study on indigenous lands on 3 communities. Documentation allows the transmission to next generations of Indigenous peoples of knowledge, practices, and innovations on the management of land, territories, resources, and biodiversity, on sustainable uses of resources, on livelihoods, and on other cultural practices of Indigenous peoples, among others. Research and documentation contributed to increasing the awareness of Indigenous youth in Lamjung District in Nepal about the importance of protecting their traditional knowledge and cultural practices. At Pidlisan, Sagada Mountain Province in the Philippines, the community formulated a plan to strengthen their indigenous institution on education and to engage the schools when the research revealed that their traditional values have weakened. The implementation of carbon stock accounting enabled the forest owners in Vietnam to calculate the timber volume as well as the carbon content in their forest. After the carbon stock accounting within the traditionally managed forest of the Dura community in Lamjung District in Nepal, through the support of CIPRED, the community was able to determine the estimated carbon stock per hectare of their forest. Implementation of IPSSDD approaches fostered sustainable livelihoods projects of ELATIA partners and communities. Institute Diakology promoted the HAS as a role model for livelihood sustainability. The HAS is a management system of natural resources that is based on local and indigenous knowledge of the indigenous peoples in Indonesia. Passed down through generations, the HAS also refers to land and territories which are central to the agricultural activities of the community and where plants and animals are thriving. Toby is one of the farmers that manage the HAS as a source of alternative income. Tapping rubber is the main livelihood of Toby, but due to the decreased pricing of rubber, and being against selling his land to an oil palm company, Toby attended training on the production effort of different crops with the help of Institute de Ecology. His harvest is now being marketed in several villages, and now he is less worried about his family's future, despite the low and falling price of rubber. The beekeeping program is one of the successful and very attractive livelihood programs in Dura communities, an initiative also established through the help of CIPRED. This program has empowered young people, providing them with self-employment opportunities at home. The beekeeping program is very successful because there is both enough forest for honey production and high demand for honey in the Dura communities. Mansaka farmers in Compostela Valley in the Philippines, supported by Sildup SE, are now producing cacao. As part of broadening their livelihood alternatives, Sildup SE facilitated the exposure of the Mansaka farmers to many cocoa production operations that include the propagation process, grafting, and preparation of cocoa beans to become chocolate. In addition to farming and agroforestry, the Livelihoods program for the Baka Pygmy in Cameroon through Lalawal focused on skills development for the indigenous women in dressmaking and tailoring. This has helped the Baka communities to sew and mend their clothes for free or at affordable prices. It also contributed additional income that met their daily needs. Meanwhile, Ilepa in Kenya supported an enhancement training to harness and preserve the traditional Maasai beadwork making skills of the Maasai women and provided an opportunity for a livelihood diversification option while ensuring environmental conservation through the lessening of firewood gathering and charcoal production. Among the different livelihoods initiatives of MPDO in Kenya is the Eco Stove project that reduces human capital on cooking as well supports timber conservation. Traditional livelihoods also played an important role during the COVID-19 pandemic, where indigenous people's practice of food preservation and food bartering among their communities became a notable response to food scarcity during these uncertain times. The most important achievements of the livelihood programs implemented within the IPSSDD framework has been 1. The increased confidence level of and the provision of self-employment opportunities for the indigenous peoples, particularly for indigenous women. 2. The reinforced transfer of traditional knowledge among indigenous youth. And 3. The lessened pressure imposed on the environmental and natural resources. Strengthening the agencies of indigenous peoples at the community level is a crucial component of IPSSDD. Through the ELATIA Partnership, some indigenous communities were able to establish their organizations that strengthened their development initiatives, especially in the protection of their lands, territories, and resources. To defend their rights and interests, including their means of subsistence, Dignity Pygmy, or DIPY, in collaboration with two Pygmy communities, organized Pygmy communities in the province of Bandundu, district of Mai Ndumbe, and Inongo Territory in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Committees on monitoring, information, and development were set up in the Pygmy villages. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, an iterative process of training on financial management for officers and members of community partners of Tebtebba enabled them to efficiently manage their assets and resources. Exchange visits and dialogues among ELATIA partners ensure lessons gathered from IPSSDD experiences benefit communities, particularly in enhancing their development initiatives. Various information and communications media such as the internet, community radios, and newspapers are widely utilized to amplify the lessons and experiences from IPSSDD not only within the community but to the wider population, including relevant actors like government officials and civil society organizations. The visibility of indigenous peoples play an important role in strengthening networks, alliances, and collaboration of indigenous peoples with other IPOs, NGOs, CSOs, as well as maintaining and establishing partnerships with governments and various national, regional, and global multilateral organizations. The IPSSDD approaches are contributing solutions to address the global multiple crises affecting millions of Indigenous peoples. IPSSDD envisions Indigenous peoples as part of the global community that enjoys the respect, protection, and fulfillment of their human rights.